No one says a word as Fellerin, Jeriko, and Mindra walk through the hushed streets of Blackpool. The air around them is damp and cool with the faint evening mist that lingers around their boots and Fellerin's bare-webbed feet. Not even the candles in the windows of residents' homes burn, indicating the lateness of the hour. Jeriko walks in between the terrifying fish-person warrior and the self-proclaimed corpse expert. They are guided by the violet street lamps and the instructions Axel provided Mindra to the older man's home, while he stalked the constabulary constructs to see what they were going to do with the body of the snake woman who had claimed to be a cannibal. Jeriko chastises himself for believing for a second that Blackpool would be a safe haven from his plight. He had gotten so far from Augur and the goblin horde and survived that he had led himself to believe he could finally have a moment of peace. But, given the past hour or so, the potential for that moment died. Literally. Kira's death was going to scar Jeriko for life. With everything that had happened mere moments ago, he couldn't help but wonder what else could possibly happen to him tonight. The shadows cast by the street lamps and the arbitrary whispers of the night were not doing Jeriko any favors for his imagination as it began to soar with what menagerie of creatures could be waiting to make him their next meals. He scans every silhouette and shadow for a 17-foot goblin with 12 eyes and arms wielding hammers and maces that would crush him in an instant. Or the serpent folk woman brought back to life with rotting claws, peeling scales, and blood-soaked fangs, ready to sink into his flesh. Or a horde of globulous masses with roots and metal strips holding them together, waving around rotten fish with their blob-like arms that would melt the skin off his bones to savor what little muscle he had to offer to...
Hey!
Startled, Jeriko faces Fellerin. Her intense gaze racks his nerves. Aside from her uncanny ability to walk backward while speaking to him, she was going to trip if she kept that up.
Relax, would ya? There's nothing out there that I can't handle.
Jeriko believes her, based solely on what he had witnessed at the tavern. What he doesn't trust is whether or not he should be concerned with her attraction to violence. Fellerin's fish does laps around her in its sphere of water and pauses to look at him now and then before going back to swimming around. The fish's body is an odd rectangular shape, and a majority of it is dark blue. A lighter hued blue creates a honeycomb pattern over its dark body. The top of its rectangular shape is brown and yellow with white spots. Jeriko has never seen such a weird fish before, yet he's never seen anyone like Fellerin either.
So, what's your name?
Me?
Yeah, you. You didn't get to really say who you were, given that guy in the tavern, and us chasing him, and then the stuff at the fountain, and now we're here.
I'm...
He forgot this question would come up eventually. And now that it has, Jeriko fumbles for the fake identity he spent hours trying to create.
I'm...
Well...
Jeriko.
He just gave her his real name. Realizing his error, he slows his pace and braces himself to run.
Nice to meet you, Jeriko. Sorry about earlier when I dragged you out of that tavern, by the way.
Oh, it's all right.
And you said you were...
Jeriko's heart rate jumps again as he remembers that Mindra is still walking beside him. He glances at the stoic blonde, praying to whatever deity may take pity on him to end him now before the corpse expert did.
Mindra, can one of you please explain what happened at the fountain?
Oh, I can. It all started when Jeriko and I were chasing after this stranger I stabbed because he was going to attack Axel back at a tavern called the Bedshaker Brewery, which I think is a terrible name. But anyway, Jeriko and I ended up at the fountain and we couldn't find that man anywhere.
Glance
but then
in Mindra's
Axel showed up.
direction as
Then
Fellerin
Kira showed
retells
up a
the
while
events that
after that,
occurred
and while
at the
Axel and
plaza's
Kira were
fountain.
talking, I
His
noticed
neutral
the statue
gaze
and
remains
asked about
fixed
it.
on Fellerin.
Axel started talking about
If
some
Mindra knew
dragon
anything
person
about
and how he
Jeriko,
was evil,
he doesn't
but then I
say
noticed
or show
something
it.
weird in the statue's
Come to
flame,
think of it,
but Axel
Mindra
wouldn't let me
doesn't
get it
appear
'cause
to
the
be much
statue
older than
cursed or
himself.
something.
As he
Turns out it was a
observes the
crystal,
young
and Axel did
half-elf
some
and the
magic
fish-like
stuff,
girl,
and he was
Jeriko
like,
can't
"It's
help
really
but
powerful,"
wonder
which
how
I
these
guess got Kira's
strangers were
interest,
handling
so she
the
took it
snake
from us
woman's
and ate it
death
so we wouldn't get
so
it back.
easily.
So after she ate the creepy crystal that apparently belonged to some necromancer general, Axel hit her with a spell, and then Kira died, and then you showed up. Oh, in case you didn't hear earlier,
We're here. Maybe we should wait for more formal introductions for when Axel returns.
I guess.
Jeriko looks over the building they stopped outside of and approaches the structure with apprehension. The wood and stone home is decrepit and in dire need of care. He hadn't been expecting a luxury home, as none were present in what he's seen of Blackpool, but it's obvious that Axel's home was older than others. Mindra reaches for the doorknob and gives it a twist. The door is quick to relent, and everyone files into Axel's home. As Jeriko enters behind Fellerin, he takes in the simple furnishings that look as old as the house itself. The living room has a stone hearth where various cushioned chairs and a sofa are positioned around it. There's a staircase leading up beside the hearth and a closed door to Jeriko's left on the other side of the stairs. A wooden dining table stands in the middle of the kitchen on the other side of the open room, with 3 chairs around it, but only one is well worn with use. There's a stove, some cupboards, and a wash basin in the kitchen. Pots and pans hang on the wall as well as dried herbs. The window curtains are all drawn shut and appear to be collecting a second layer of dust. The stale air contained in the home is cold and sends a shiver down Jeriko's small stature. He spies a haphazard stack of wood that is partially hidden behind the hearth and its stone chimney. Fellerin zips around the house inspecting everything and touching a lot of things she probably shouldn't be.
I don't think you should be touching any of that.
What are those? They don't look to be very effective clubs, if you ask me.
Those are pots. You cook food in them on the stove.
What's a stove?
It's a device that allows land dwellers to cook their food since they do not eat raw fish as your people do. Food goes in the pot, and the pot goes on the stove to cook over the stove's flame.
Oh, that's neat. What do you think this is, Bubbles?
Deciding to leave Fellerin and Bubbles to explore the kitchen, hoping she wouldn't be brandishing a knife the next time he turns to see what she's up to, Jeriko steps into the living room with Mindra. The floor creaks with each step Jeriko takes, but the wood floor's groaning ceases once he makes it to the woven rug in the room's center. The cold and soot-stained stone hearth stands before him and Mindra.
Do you think you can get a fire going?
Mindra nods and begins to arrange the wood from the little stockpile in the stone opening. He creates a neat stack before he snaps his fingers beneath the pile. Bright green sparks fly from his fingers, and by the second try, they catch the wood. A fire flickers to life in the hearth and starts to radiate warmth throughout the home. Jeriko brings himself closer to the flames and holds his chilled hands out to the hearth, relishing the needed heat and safety within the confines of a home, Jeriko's shoulders start to drop and the tension starts to fade from his... Jeriko's heart rate jumps, and he whips around to see Axel storm into the house out of breath, and he appears more ragged than he had been back at the fountain. Axel is startled upon seeing Jeriko and Mindra in his living room, but it's replaced with recognition.
Oh, right. Kids in my house.
From the kitchen, Fellerin pops up from behind the dining table with her fish by her side.
Oh, you're back. You have a cool house, Axel. There's a bunch of weird stuff in here.
Thanks.
Axel casts a worried glance over his kitchen before joining Jeriko and Mindra. He collapses into a well-worn chair and runs a hand through his graying hair.
Well, they threw Kira's body into the ravine that surrounds the city. There's nothing that can be done now.
They threw her body into the ravine?
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Fellerin flips over the sofa to sit and join the conversation.
It was that trench that had weird and creepy purple mist and magic coming out of it, right?
Yes, that's it. But with that crystal in her body, I don't know what's going to happen now.
What does that mean?
The magic that's deep in the ravine is rumored to be Dresniel's lingering power. It lights our street lamps and allows the constructs to function. The crystal you found in the flame was also his and was very powerful. Such powers combined could do
Anything.
Is that bad?
There's no way to know until something either happens, or I try to find something that could give us answers at Blackpool's library tomorrow.
That's not comforting at all.
Anyway, I'm sorry this all happened. You're all welcome to stay here tonight, and you can decide what you want to do tomorrow morning. I'll be heading to the library to see if I can find any answers about Drasniel's crystal.
I'd be willing to accompany you. I've been wanting to pay the library a visit anyway while I was here.
Very well. We'll head out early in the morning.
I heard land libraries have these things called books in them. And they're made from this weird flat stuff that's called paper, I think. Oh, and the words on them are made of octopus and squid ink. And do you really use seagull feathers to put the ink on the flat stuff? It seems kind of impractical, especially since seagulls are annoying. How do you even get the ink anyway? Octopus and squid aren't easy to catch. I should know because I've tried before and it's not fun.
That's almost correct.
Which part did I get wrong? Was it the seagull feathers?
Fellerin, right?
That's me.
Forgive me if this question is sensitive, but what are you doing on the surface? Your people rarely ever breach the depths of the oceans, let alone journey onto the continent.
I'm glad you asked.
Fellerin stands and withdraws her trident. She gives it a few spins before slamming its blunt end onto the floor, takes a regal stance, and clears her throat to make her grand declaration.
I am Fellerin Relunath, future general to the kingdom of Relunath's armies, future right hand to the royal family, and I am here to conquer the surface world.
You're a general.
Well, technically, I'm a general in training, but I have already earned the symbol of my status and am more than capable of fulfilling my rightful position.
She digs around in her pocket and withdraws a thin ring carved from an ivory substance. The ring has a symbol etched into it that Jeriko doesn't recognize.
How did you acquire the ring?
I kicked my teacher's butt in a duel and claimed his ring. He's the current general of my kingdom's army. The ring is made from the teeth of a mega-toothed shark, which makes it even cooler.
You beat your teacher, your kingdom's current general, in a fight.
Fair and square. But apparently my people won't honor the victory because I didn't adhere to my training or whatever. They still don't think I can handle the position. So I decided to prove them all wrong by making a name for myself on the surface world. My kingdom may, forbid traveling up here. But when I return to them after conquering the surface, then they'll see that I am fit to serve as the next general. And I'll be the greatest general to ever live in the oceans.
How old are you exactly?
I'm 12.
Jeriko chokes on air and attempts to mask it as a sudden need to cough. Mindra doesn't appear to be too fazed, but his features are taut. Axel, on the other hand...
You're 12? And your parents endorsed this?
I don't know. It's a requirement for all Sea Dweller children to learn basic combat. But I was so good at fighting and strategizing that I was selected for the position by the royal family themselves. How old are you?
Me? I'm 18.
What's your story then?
It's nothing grand like yours. I'm just a traveling performer trying to get by.
A performer, huh? Surely there are plenty of establishments to perform at in Augur. So what made you leave?
Augur?
Assuming that's where you're from, based on your accent.
Oh, well, you see, there are so many other performers there, and I thought I'd go see what other opportunities are out there. My name is Jeriko, by the way.
I suppose that's fair. The streets of Augur are often occupied by performers day and night.
Do you also hail from Augur?
My family's residence stands beyond Augur's outskirts. I am not within the city walls often, so I do not carry the inner city speech.
So where are you most often?
As a mercenary, I go where I'm hired or where my employer wants me. I had just finished my latest job when I discovered you all.
What school of magic do you practice, Mindra? I thought I had seen a spellbook with you.
Necromancy.
So you do magic for hire, and you're a performer, for some reason. So what about you? It's your turn to tell us about yourself.
There isn't much to tell. I'm a scholar and sorcerer who draws power from the Phoenix. And I've lived in Blackpool for as long as I can remember. I lost my wife several years ago. And my daughter left a few years afterward.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Don't worry about it. I think it's been a long day for everyone. Why don't we get some rest and we'll head to the Blackpool Library tomorrow morning, if you and Jeriko would like to join us.
Sure, I'll go.
If that's okay with you.
Very well. I guess we're all going.
That's fine with me. If anyone needs anything, I'll be in the left side bedroom. Feel free to sleep wherever. There should be spare blankets and pillows in the closet over there.
Axel waves his hand over to a small closet door in the wall that stood by the foyer.
Otherwise, good night.
Axel climbs the stairs and disappears. Mindra goes over to the small closet and returns with a pillow and blanket, which he hands to Jeriko. He accepts them with a timid smile, but when Mindra returns to the closet to retrieve his own set of necessary bedding, Jeriko isn't sure which space in the living room to claim. Instead, he observes Fellerin follow Mindra. She pokes around in the closet beside him, retreats with nothing in hand after her inspection, and plops herself on the floor.
What are you doing?
Taking the floor. You guys can have the furniture.
Take the sofa. You can have the chair and I'll take the floor.
Are you sure?
The chair behind Jeriko looks far more enticing than the floor, despite the flat cushions on it. But putting Mindra out of a comfortable place to sleep doesn't feel right. Mindra nods and hands Fellerin one of the pillows he's holding.
Try it. I think you'll like it. You lay your head on it.
He lays the pillow on the floor, then lays his head down on it and covers himself with the blanket he had grabbed. Fellerin watches Mindra's demonstration with the concentration of a blacksmith working on a master-crafted weapon. She then copies his actions, and a look of newfound discovery lights up on her face.
Whoa.
Once Mindra and Fellerin are settled, Jeriko nestles himself in the armchair and thinks over his decision to accompany the others to the library tomorrow. He's taking a huge risk, but he can just leave afterwards, right? He'd be fine so long as he found a window of opportunity to depart from this weird little group of strangers. Besides, nothing as awful as the events of tonight would occur at such a place as a city library.